Okay, so it's a fairly straightforward thing that can be done in 9 seconds, as Brian showed you. I talked to him afterwards and said, thanks, you've warmed up my audience. The 9 seconds, it was actually 14 seconds, and as you saw, it was really fast. And he said, oh, I don't have to do it in 9 seconds, I can just shrink the footage. So he sped it up a little bit. But as I said, Usain Bolt doesn't do the 100-metre sprint in 9 seconds, and that's just it. He's got a warm-up process beforehand. So to get to that 9 seconds, you have to go and get Joomla. And so you can go to joomla.org and download the full package. And so currently there's 2.5 and 3, so we'll get a copy of both. There goes that 9 seconds. It's a bit of irony that it takes longer to download it than it does to install it now. So. Okay. So then you go to your cPanel. And you go to your file manager, is the easiest way to upload it, or a way to upload it. If you've got your FTP set up, you can then go to an FTP client and push the zip file across. But you'll still need to come into your file manager to unpack the zip file. Otherwise you've got to unpack the zip file on your computer and push all the files up, which will take much longer. So we'll create a new folder here. Normally you don't have to create a new folder, but we're doing it as a demo today. So I'll follow that. Yes, yeah. But if you're installing it in the root of your site, you can just put it in the public HTML folder.
Sorry,
if it's going to be your main site, you can just put the zip file in the public HTML folder.
Yeah.
Yep. Install demo. And so now that's uploading, so this is where they're walking out onto the track. No, it's not too bad. So, but we are on a university network, so that can sometimes be a bit slower. Then, you select that and go extract. Then close that. Go to 2.5 and upload that as well. And I'm going to create one more folder to show you the other way that I install, which is what I call a skeleton. And in one of the other presentations over the weekend, he calls it a rubber stamp. And basically it's a build of the site where everything is pre-installed, and so if you're going to be a site developer, you build your base build, and then you can just pick up that base build and punch it out to make other sites, which speeds up a lot of the process, because it usually takes me from scratch about an hour and a half to get all the things that I need to customise with Joomla done. And so if I'm installing 10 sites in a month, that's 15 hours that I save in just tweaking things.
So that's instead of downloading.
Yeah, so instead of downloading the core, yep. Yeah. So I'll
you would download you would have downloaded the original, you do your own
customisations to it, yeah.
And then you use that from then on.
Yeah, yeah. So in here I've got the skeleton. This one's a couple of days old. So we need two files for the skeleton. One's the installer program, and one is the skeleton file itself. So the base Joomla build is about 7 meg as a zip file, whereas my skeleton now has grown to 22 meg. So I'll go through all the extensions that I've installed to get to that.
So it's not only taking stuff out and multiplying, but it's adding stuff to it.
It's all the, adding components and things like that. So, so I've got admin tools that keep it back up, JCE editor, no number extensions, RS forms, and probably about 10 other plugins that I use. So, yeah. Right, so then we're out on the track now. We'll now go and do some warm-ups by adding the databases. And from a security point of view, this is where one of the things to address is when you create the database. The database name and the database username should be something that's not that easy to guess. So I'll call it demo 25 today. Yep. So.
I noticed that happened with Brian.
Yes. Yeah. So this is the step before that, where you actually create the database. So on some systems, so depending on how your installer is set up on your hosting, you might have a thing called Fantastico, which is another method of installing Joomla, and that's a one-click where it goes and grabs the version of Joomla, unpacks it, sets up the database, and does all that without asking you the question. So, okay. Site and uploading it. Okay. Right. Yep. Okay. 2.5, you still have to create it. And if you use the password generator, that'll give you a nice random password that no one can really guess. You pretty much never need to use your MySQL login. So in cPanel, you can log into your database using just through cPanel. You don't have to log in again as such. It's only the password's only needed for the install file, so that you can set up the database so that Joomla itself talks to the database. So if there was a vulnerability that was found that actually released that password, then you've only got to change it in the one place. You won't be attacked. Let's say you can go and just change that database password and change it in your configuration file. So once you've created the username and password, you then need to assign the privileges to the database. And just click on all privileges there and go next step. And so now that database user is created. So you need to extract the contents of the Joomla file, and now what will be able to be done is that we can go to kpsystem.com.au. And so now we're in the 2.5 installer, and we can go next after picking the language. All the things are right in the checklist. So we go next again. We agree to the license. Set up the database, so it's going to be system. No, so that's the same. So I set up the same username and database name for both parts of that.
That's where I did it on the database itself.
Okay, that's right. So this part explains part of it, I think.
I didn't do it prior, the recent one.
Yeah, so here we go. So this area here explains that some web hosts require you to create the database first. My server is configured in that way at the moment, so that's it. I haven't actually, to be honest, tried. I've just gotten into the habit of creating the database. And probably the main reason for that is that then I know that it's the way that I do it, yeah. So I'll try that in a minute with the next one to put that in. And then you can skip the FTP configuration normally. Again, that's another security hole. So the table prefix should be, like it used to be JOS in 1.5 all the time. So having that randomised means that that's one less, oops, that's always good for it, one less thing that people can find out about. So. So we skip that because we don't need it on this one. Then it creates your configuration.
Sorry, what's the FTP configuration listing?
Yeah, so there used to be an FTP layer in 1 and 1.5,
Right.
and what that would do would be that if you didn't have the right Apache user rights for the account that you were using, it would actually allow you to use the FTP to come in and write files to the server. So
It's redundant.
it's now becoming more redundant, yeah, and that's why it's not an option in 3. As such. Well, sorry, it's not an installation option in 3. It skips over that because you shouldn't.
You shouldn't be doing it because it actually.
It can create a security vulnerability because then people can actually, if they got your FTP details, they can then hack your site. So, yeah. So they certainly don't recommend you save the FTP password when you set this up. So,
And in 3 I won't ever see it.
no. So then we put in 2.5. And recommend that you change your username from admin. Default English. You can install sample data, but I tend to not install any sample data because obviously then I've got to delete it all before I start.
That's the step on that,
Right.
yeah, it's the sample data and all that, sort of trying to get my head around it, because you've got all your modules and trying to get sort of like the framework and all that kind of stuff like that. Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around it.
That's right. So we'll walk through that in a minute because basically once you get to that point of, if you install the sample data, it'll throw stuff in there,
All the files.
but all the stuff's rubbish. So all the files for the core part of Joomla get installed anyway.
Yeah.
What used to happen in 1 was that a base set of modules would always be installed.
Yeah.
With this one now, it'll only install the main menu, the login, and I can't remember what the third one, I think it's breadcrumbs or something like that as modules.
Yeah.
And then from there, you then get building on the rest of it.
Yeah.
So that's all now ready to go. All you've got to do is just remove the installation folder. And now that that's done, you can go to the site. And there's your 2.5 demo. And there's your 2.5 administrator. And it's only remembered that detail because I've used my regular login there. So there's not much then installed, so you've just got the out-of-the-box bits and pieces. We've installed the latest version, so the Joomla is up to date. It shows up here. There's no extra extensions installed at the moment to say that they're ready for updating, and then you can just go and start installing with the extension manager or setting up other modules. So, and it's probably a good time to answer your question there on modules. It is breadcrumbs as the third one. You've got your main menu and your login form. And then to create a new module, you just pick new and go pick what type you want and then go through setting up those settings. But probably the big thing to work out is what the template position that's been referred to is. Yep. Okay. Yep, right. So this is a trick well worth noting. If you add $TP1, sorry, TP equals 1 to the end of the URL, in 1.5 it would show you all the module positions. Out of the box, 2.5 has this feature turned off. And so what you do is go to Extensions Template Manager, and then go to Options and Preview Module Positions Enable. And the reason they've put that as a hide the feature is because it's one of several ways that you can tell that it's a Joomla website. So if they scoured through and showed all that, now that that's turned on. Yeah.
Had that exact what you just did then.
Yeah.
I didn't go back and I turned it on and I was like, where's the module positions? But I didn't type in the URL.
Right.
So
Yeah.
So that just answers my question.
Yeah. So now you can see that you've got position 12 is above the content.
Yeah.
Was it the default template? The positions are all numbered out of sequence. Chances are you're going to replace it with your own template, and you just need to know what the positions are to get it worked out. So you've got 3 and 6 on the right,
Well, that's great.
7, 5.
Transferring a template, it's got heaps of content.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And then you can see where it all is and go put it all in. So, and you'll have some templates where there's 120 positions. Just shower the screen. 3.0 templates are going to become cleaner. In Brian's workshop yesterday, he was actually explaining that he can do everything on a site with 4 module positions, because the responsive parts of the template then are all assigned within that one module position. So you end up using other plugins to call modules in, and you might put 8 modules in the one position, but you've called them in a special way to get them to load. So that's 2.5 installed. So now let's do 3 and see if we can beat Brian. English demo 2.5. Oh, it's pre-filled, that makes life easier. All done there. So I should pause for questions, so in case there's any parts that...
Just wondering, sometimes you download a program from like a Drupal program, give you the matching keys to check against each other. They don't seem to do that.
No, it's a technical thing. So Joomla's trying to be less technical for the users. So that MDF and the hash key, that's actually on certain parts of downloads for Joomla. What that actually is it's saying that when you take the size of the file and the information about the file, you hash them together. That's what the string that comes out as the hash is. Yeah. If that matches the one that you're downloading, then it's all good. But how do you find the one that you're downloading? And that's the question as to whether how useful that is. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's a very technical, and Drupal's far more technical in that regard, which is quite. Yeah, it's probably the one thing that put me off going to Drupal at one point. So, I've never taken the time to do a file comparison to make sure that I'm downloading the right file. I pretty much take the factor that you've got it from their website and it's the right file size and it unpacked properly, that it's going to do this thing. Yeah. So pretty much now all you need to do is put the site name, description. So that's the meta description that is used site-wide. So it's certainly worth thinking about what goes into that, and that'll be one of my other things in the SEO session this afternoon. By getting that right as such, then your first step of SEO is done. You'll find out this afternoon that there's then, you should actually have unique metadata descriptions on every single page, and how to do that is certainly easier in 3. Okay, so
that could simply be just a whole list of words.
no, it should be ideally should ideally be a properly structured paragraph. Where it generally appears is on a Google search engine result. You'll have the title, and then you'll have the meta description. Yeah. So there's there used to be a keywords field in 2.5. Keywords are less important now. There still is the ability to put keywords in 3, I'm pretty sure. But because they don't get used as extensively, they're not something that gets asked in the installation anymore.
So is Joomla basically SEO optimized already?
Yes, yeah. So all those features
So
are built in.
That you're creating within Joomla
Yep.
is you're creating keywords as you.
Yeah, and I'll show you that in a minute. And this afternoon, there's actually 4 or 5 places that when you create an article that you should put data and things that you should do, and if you do that, then your SEO is well on its way. Yeah, so a little bit, but there's particular things in Joomla. So if you've got your page title right, you put in a meta description, you put alt tags on your images, you put keywords in your general content, all of that then combines to give you a rating as such that hopefully the search engines pick up. So.
Patrick, in that description in where you just word, is there a limit on the characters in that?
The recommendation is,
So 20.
no, it's up about 80 words or something, I think. There's a little tool on the bottom of my screen that keeps disappearing whenever I restart, so I've got to... So I've got a plugin here called SEO Doctor, which will give me a score of all the different things, and the reason the installation page is actually set to not be indexable, so that's why it's not giving me a score at the moment. But this tells me the recommended length is 70 words, 350 characters. Yep. And they then say your page title should be title tag 11 words and 70 characters. Now, they're guidelines, not rules. And the reason that they're a guideline is that in Google shows the first 70 characters and the first 350 characters. So once you go over those values, then people aren't going to see what's in the title tag. So, so one of the things I do is append the company name to the end of the title, but that means that the actual base title can be up to 70, and then the company name just falls off the end of the page there.
Isn't that those same rules that happen with, say, Bing and other search engines, or are they not worth worrying about in our context going to those others?
They do generally sort of run across the board as being the best practice length for any of the search engines. Sticking to them certainly doesn't hurt, and I've sort of been working on those numbers as being the standard, and I haven't had sites taking a dip. I've had both sites improve when all that's done. So right, so I haven't created the database this time, so we'll see if going next. But so my server's configured to say that I need to set up the database first. It doesn't automatically go and generate it, and so the error at the top there is what's preventing that. So if I go back to 25, You can put multiple installs in the one database. All you've got to do is just have a different prefix for the tables, and that way you can have blocks of tables that all add up to being different databases. But again, it's probably best practice to have a separate database, if you can, for each Joomla install. And then again, you've got different types of test data, but we'll still none again. You can leave the email configuration blank, as set to no. Most installations, the email system should use the default PHP mail system and then work without a problem. It's only then if you've got other issues that you need to then change it, or if you're installing some local installation or something like that. So if everything there is green, then that's all good. And then we can go install. I'll have to tweet Brian later and say, no, it doesn't take 9 seconds when you're trying to explain it. And so that's the 3 installed. And then we can remove the installation folder again and go to administrator, and we're in. So how many of you used 3 yet? And look at 3. Yeah. Briefly, and yeah, Brian's probably, in his presentation, he showed pretty much all the things that he showed in a 3-hour workshop yesterday, just really, really quickly.
We do have the disaster where we're on 1.5, trying upgrades.
Yeah, it's a bit of a slow thing. Sorry, are you Shannon? Are you Shannon? No. No, that's right. Sorry, I had someone coming to my workshops that didn't show up, and they're a trainee at a company in Ballarat, and she was very keen to learn, and I could see that there was going to be things that, so I looked at the sites that she'd sent me, and then she sent me an email to explain how she was coming to the workshops. And that then explained the fact that I wasn't going to have an expert sit in the room, but she also had to, she was trying to learn as much as she can and take it back to work. And the other people at work were the ones that are actually probably making the mistakes for their sites on different things. All right, so this is the new content part, and we'll quickly jump across to the metadata options. And that was one of the things Brian was explaining, that now that all the menus for the different things, where they used to be down the left-hand side, the right-hand side of the screen in little sliders, they're now across the top as tabs, which makes it more of a logical progression to go through and say, okay, I've created my article, I've put in my title, I've put in my content, I've then gone to publishing options, corrected the ALSDB, put a start and finish date, all that sort of stuff. I can say whether this article is going to have the headings turned on and off. Hide, show, use global means that it's set in the overall article manager.
How do we know the required information? Just the article details?
The article.
Required information?
Yeah, so the little star there. So title, category and content are the only things that are actually required. Whereas, I'd ideally like to make it so that it was, for my clients, I'd probably make it title, category, content, meta description.
No, yesterday I went to Noel's workshop.
Yep.
I might have this wrong, but I think he was saying don't fill in the metadata keywords anymore.
Yeah, so there's not much point filling in the metadata keywords anymore from a search engine point of view. So the meta description,
In that description,
yeah.
you just
So that one there, so the first one we had on the install screen is the generic site-wide one, and so that will get put in on every single site. Every single page of the site, unless that page has an overriding one here. So the recommendation is to put a unique one here because Google will look at individual meta descriptions and then rank the pages according to, because this should relate to what your content is, and so then it increases the relevance there. It's going.
Keywords, again, are not the
So the keywords aren't, so they get displayed in the page, but they don't influence search engines as much anymore. That's not to say don't put them in. There is a time to use them, and that is for internal searching on the site. Keywords get looked at as part of the Joomla search, I believe. And I probably should check that before this afternoon session, so I haven't said it again. And putting meta keywords in, if you've got misspellings of a common word or something like that that relates to your keywords, or relates to your content, gives you that flexibility there that if people are likely to search for the wrong thing all the time and those keywords come up in the search, then the misspelt word can be searched for, but the correct result will come up. And that means that you'll be able to answer more queries for people because they can find something that's the fault of their own grammatical error.
Is that still aiming for internal search, not a
It doesn't influence so Google's algorithm doesn't include keywords anymore because people used to have keyword stack, and that's where that came out of the ranking factors. And so they took it all out of the ranking factors. But now, I will be checking that what I've just told you is correct because I haven't done it in 3.
But it does actually, Google search will pick up the meta description.
Yeah, definitely. And having that unique for every page on your site gives Google more things to look at.
get delivered to the right page rather than just the front.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I've got a site that's got 4,000 links, or 4,000 pages indexed by Google, and 1,700 of those have got identical metadata because we've not gone and updated. When we migrated the site, we didn't have metadata to put in there. So the metadata fields are now in the database that feeds the site, and we've actually got to go through systematically and add custom to each page to customise it. And it's for a speakers bureau, and you'll see that in my session this afternoon. We have to go and actually write 70 words about what that speaker is about. And then when some speaker does something...
There's no extension to allow.
Well, so there is. There's a bulk editor, which is one of the things in my one this afternoon. So SH404 Ceph is an extension that will do that. But the good practice to get into is when you create your content, create your meta description, and that way it's done.
Unless you inherit somebody else's.
Yeah, which is again the drawback on that one there. Alright, so now the third option is to show how the skeleton gets done. So I uploaded 2 files, one's the skeleton archive and the other one's a file called Kickstart PHP. Kickstart is part of the Akiba backup suite. So what I've gone and done is built my skeleton and then created an Akiba backup copy of that site and downloaded it to my local computer. And then I just upload that when I want to roll out a new site. Upload the Kickstart PHP file, so there's only the 2 files there. So before we had to actually unpack the whole archive to get the installation folder and all the files out for Joomla. In this case, I just click on Kickstart, and it gives me a message saying things you should know, go and do this, that and the other. And so then it gives you, it's found the archive file straight away, asks you, do you want to directly write them to the server, which you do. Do you want to do any of that? So you can leave all the fine tuning, it's all fine, and you go extract files. So now it's doing that unpacking process. And then it packed it up with an installer, and so now there's the installer, and saying what do you want to do, so check that all the settings are right, yes. Restore the database, where do you want to restore that to? Now it's recognised that you're restoring the backup to a different location to where the backup was taken, and so it says do you want to clear all the fields, and you say yes to that. Then it lets you put in all your database details. And it'll ask you what you want your prefix to be. And we had the two random ones earlier, so we can put in the same database as the third table set. So once you've done that, you go next. And that's now restored the database that I had in the backup.
Skeleton's a backup database.
Yeah, so the skeleton's a backup of the whole set of site files and the database.
Okay.
Yep. So then it's pulled the previous site name. And so you just change what settings you had on your previous build. You can put in the live site URL is optional, and if you don't know what that's about, you can leave it blank, but generally you put in the primary URL for the web page, and that's a setting that's optional in Joomla. But what it does is all the URLs that you go to on your website, it will adjust the URL to that live site value. And that means that if you miss the www, but you've put the www in the live site version, it'll optimise the site a little better by putting the full URL there. Overwrite temp and log part, so you put a tick there and it updates the two values down here for the temp and logs directory. Because you backed up a previous site, your admin login is saved in the database, so you don't have to change the database password here if you know what that is. And then there it's got the FTP details for 2.5, but that'll probably go in 3. And then you say next, and now that's the site installed. Remove the installation directory. Okay, that's the template that I've got installed on my skeleton. And so the site's now live. And if I go to administrator, and so Joomla was already up to date, but it's probably going to find, because I've done this a week or two ago for the last build that I did, that there'll actually be a couple of extensions that need updating. The problem there being that the way that it checks that doesn't work on the Swinburne network because of the firewall. So we'll just go and do. I won't do that at the moment. So there you can see that I've got admin tools, a keeper backup, content templater, DB replacer, JCE editor, no number extension manager, redirect, re-replacer, RS forms, SH404 Ceph, snippets, versions, and what's that on there?
You don't have product or
So I don't install that in my skeleton. So these are the components that I use on every site. Well, and you'll see if you're staying for Russell in a second. What those. The last one that's installed there is XMap, which does the sitemap. I think I've got Google Maps plugin installed as well. And there's a couple other admin things I've probably put in over time, but all those ones that you can see there are the ones that I've now installed in my 3.0 skeleton, except for SH404 Ceph because it's not available for 3.0 yet. So when 3.0 came out in September, yeah, none of the extensions were available that I've just gone through there. So now, yesterday, when I did Brian's introduction workshop to 3.0, all of those extensions, except for SH404 Ceph, were available to 3.0. And so pretty much now I've only got one extension that I'm waiting on being finished, and then I could actually launch a production site in 3.0, though I'm more than likely going to wait, in most cases, till 3.5 comes out. And so rather than having to go and install all of those, I've now got this skeleton file ready to go and can roll out new sites that quickly, rather than doing what we started with and then having to install all the different parts to it. Yeah. But that's more if you're doing lots of sites, that becomes handy. Yeah. Yeah.
You mean the skeleton will contain all the components, required components?
Yeah, so I'll show you how I create the skeleton. It's basically I go to Akiba Backup. So I've got another site installed on this server that it's got no content in it, it's just got the extensions in it, the latest Joomla build, nothing else. And so I just go to Akiba Backup and say, okay, well, what's the latest? So there's a new version of Akiba Backup. So when I go to do the backup, I'd spot that and then update that before I did it. And so I basically go through and update all the extensions before I do a backup. So then I know that that copy is the latest copy and is available. You know, I can probably get away with doing this once a month and just keep up to date with it so it stays on top of it. I've still got to go back to all the sites I've used the skeleton for and update all of those as it happens. Ideally, it'd be nice if all the extensions use the extension update tool, but most of them still don't, so it makes it hard to find it all. So I basically just go to Akiba Backup, and the first time after you install it, it does a configuration wizard. He's added a new clause to the latest version that says, yeah, I understand that if you haven't tested the backup, it's as good as not having a backup, because you don't know that backup's actually worked. So once all that's ready to go, just click on Backup Now, and then it's got all the other settings. So you would configure all the things you're required to in Akiba, and Brian's probably going to go through some of those in his session later today. And now that's doing a backup. Yeah, so that's gone through and put the installer in, backed up the database, backed up all the files, and it's now putting the backup in process, compressing all of that.
Backup the database tables on the same database, or creating a new database?
It's copying the database, and I'm fairly sure it's only going to copy the tables relating to this Joomla install into the backup to the database. So, yeah. Then you go to Manage Backups, and you download that, and so a copy of that would then mean that you had the latest copy all ready to go. Yeah. So as they're all appearing, that means that we're nearly out of time, which is good. That I hope that I haven't bored you for an hour. And hope you've learned something. Any other questions there? Or you can just grab me during the course of the weekend.